We have a
Jeremy
guest
Dice
in
is here.
studio. Yes, introduce him, please.
This is Jeremy Dice. Hi, Jeremy.
Good morning, Rick. Thanks for having me on this morning. Shauna, good to see you.
Good to see you.
How are things?
Things are very good. Good to be back in the 58 CHS studios on Talkline.
And yesterday we had a guest on as we were talking about the vote in New York State concerning marriage of gays and lesbians, and we wanted to invite you to come in this morning as well.
I appreciate that, and I'm sorry I didn't get to return your call quickly enough to get on here, but be glad to talk about how the New York State Legislature has unfortunately redefined marriage, confirming that there's clearly a nationwide effort to redefine marriage in this country going on.
Tell us a little bit about the Family Policy Council of West Virginia.
Our mission is to advocate for policies that embrace the sanctity of human life, that enrich marriage, and safeguard religious freedom. We're passionate about advancing, defending, and equipping West Virginia's families. On this particular issue, we've been at the forefront of encouraging our lawmakers to allow the people of West Virginia to settle the legal definition of marriage under which they'll be ruled.
Meaning a constitutional amendment?
That's right. Yeah, that's the next step that needs to happen here in West Virginia. And what's been clear from California now through New York and several other states is that there's a nationwide effort to redefine marriage. There's no legitimate reason to not let the people of West Virginia decide this legal definition, and our lawmakers ought to allow them to do so.
See, as more and more states approve same-sex marriages, you see West Virginia going in a different direction?
Well, right now, there are 30 states that have rejected the redefinition of marriage. 29 have a constitutional amendment within their state constitutions defining marriage as one man and one woman. And one state had the legislature redefine it, and they said, no, we're not going to allow that. And they overturned the legislature and said, we're not going to abide by that definition. Here in West Virginia, it really comes down to just to a few select lawmakers who are preventing this from going to the people in the state of West Virginia. Our data shows that 69% of Democrats, 82% of Republicans would likely vote for a marriage protection amendment in this state. That's something that our lawmakers ought to listen to.
You had an interesting blog out, was it yesterday? Lessons West Virginians should learn in a New York Minute.
That's right.
Give us some of the highlights of that.
Well, if listeners like to go to engagefamilyminute.com, engagefamilyminute.com, they can go ahead and read that themselves as well. But I'm trying to make the case, again, that there is a nationwide effort to redefine marriage in this country, and that a bare majority of state senators should not decide this society-shaping issue. And I go through about 5 different reasons or lessons that we ought to learn, one of which I think is probably the most germane to where West Virginia is at this calendar date anyway, and that's the issue of the governor. Up in New York a couple years ago, they tried to redefine marriage, and it failed. They switch governors. Andrew Cuomo becomes the governor of the state, and almost single-handedly, he forces this issue upon the state of New York. It's interesting to note that really, aside from signing the document at the end, Cuomo had no part of this. He couldn't convene the legislature. He couldn't convene a committee. He didn't even propose the legislation. He just simply used the office of governor as a bully pulpit. Now, West Virginians ought to remember that when it comes to October this year in selecting the new or replacement governor for Joe Manchin.
It seems like you also pointed out that in New York, this would not have passed had it not been for some Republicans voting for this amendment.
That's right.
This law.
That's exactly right. As we've been looking at this effort nationwide to redefine marriage, one of the great criticisms that always gets thrown back in our faces is that, this is just another Republican thing. This is just another Republican operative. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Number one, 62% of Americans, Republican and Democrat, support marriages between one man and one woman. Number two, in West Virginia, that number is up to about 75% of West Virginians, Republican or Democrat, that support marriage. This is not a Republican or a Democrat thing. This is a West Virginia. This is an American thing that the people ought to be deciding. For lawmakers to effectively hold the Constitution hostage from the people of West Virginia smacks of a distaste for the democratic process in the state that West Virginians and most Americans are simply not fond of.
Jeremy Dice is with us from the Family Policy Council of West Virginia. Also, and I'm just now trying to get my arms around this whole issue here in the state of West Virginia in terms of there's another group out there, the West Virginia Family Foundation, of which Kevin McCoy is the spokesperson. And he is critical of your organization for not going far enough with the amendment. Their amendment reads, only a union between one man and one woman may be a marriage valid in or recognized by this state and its political subdivisions, which pretty much is the amendment I think you were, or your organization was in favor of the last couple of years.
Actually, our amendment to prevent this nationwide effort to redefine marriage only just included the definition that marriage shall be included as one man and one woman, period. It's one sentence amendment, 19 words.
And his organization is saying that doesn't go far enough, and they add a second sentence to that, which says, this state and its political subdivisions shall not create or recognize a legal status for same-sex relationships to which is assigned the rights, benefits, obligations, qualities, or effects of marriage. And he goes on to sort of criticize your organization for kind of watering down the amendment, trying to curry votes and support from Democrats.
I'm not going to criticize Mr. McCoy. I view him as a friend on this issue. We have a difference of opinion as to the precise language, but we both agree that marriage needs to be defended in the state and allow the people of West Virginia to make that decision, not to allow lawmakers to do that or to allow it to be held hostage, I guess, by lawmakers. It's the duty of every lawmaker to allow and defend the right of the people to settle this issue, and that ought to be the case.
Is this a rift between the two organizations, or just a misunderstanding? And even if it's just a misunderstanding,
it's certainly not a rift on my part. Now, I can't speak for Mr. McCoy. I view him as a friend. We're certainly colleagues on this issue, at least in the terms of allowing the people of West Virginia to settle this definition. But I hate to not provide you with good radio, Rick, but the reality is that we're friends on this issue. We want to talk more about it all. I can't speak for Mr. McCoy, and I'd love to work together to allow the people of West Virginia to vote on this issue.
Does it hurt the cause if there is this difference of opinion?
As long as people are focused on the goal of allowing the people of West Virginia to vote on this issue, I don't see how it could hurt the cause.
So the amendment that your organization supports does not address civil unions.
Well, that's right. The issue with civil unions is that, as we've seen throughout the other states that are trying to redefine marriage here, civil unions are the first step towards redefining marriage. No one has ever been satisfied with civil unions. If you look at California, which is the prime example for this, they had everything literally but the word marriage ascribed to their relationships. And so to allow for civil unions, it's simply one step towards redefining marriage. And so rather than fuss about the things in between, we just simply want to go to the ultimate issue and say, let's settle this issue that needs to be had. I was heartened to hear Bradley Milam, I guess, on your program yesterday, said that they wanted to have the conversation on this issue, or at least that's not being had right now. I think it's a conversation whose time is long due to have happen here. Right now we have lawmakers who are seeing the nationwide effort to redefine marriage going on across the country. You've had legislatures in New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, D.C., and now New York. Maryland is looking at it right now. There have been courts in California, Connecticut, Iowa, Massachusetts, and several federal courts that are looking at the redefinition of marriage. You have the presidential administration who has told his attorney general to stop defending the definition of marriage in court, effectively giving a free pass to those who would want to redefine it in federal court. This is a conversation that our lawmakers are simply ducking right now, and it needs to change.
One of the things that Bradley Milam
from Fairness, West Virginia,
yesterday said that pretty much this was not on their radar screen, the issue of marriage or unions, that they were focused and want to focus on issues like
discrimination
in employment and bullying, and that the marriage issue was not something they were really going to be focused on in this upcoming legislative session.
Yeah, well, it's, again, a part and parcel of this multiple-step process. Now, there is clearly a nationwide effort to redefine marriage. We're seeing that across the country. There are multiple and rather inexpensive strategies that could be easily used to redefine marriage here in West Virginia. And one of those strategies is to use these anti-discrimination, anti-bias, these hyper-tolerant pieces of legislation to insert sexual orientation within the state's laws, create a conflict within the laws, and then create that to then go in and create a quote-unquote legal equality right to same-sex marriage. That's what we've seen in California, where Judge Walker in the Ninth Circuit out there said that religious beliefs that gays and lesbians are immoral or sinful, I can't remember the precise language, harm gays and lesbians. And so what we're finding is that if they can create a sexual orientation basis within the statutes of West Virginia, they will then make an argument that there is an equal protection argument under the United States Constitution and the state constitution of West Virginia, creating a conflict, creating a more discussion out of the hands of the people in the courtroom, and again, keeping people from settling this issue once and for all.
So you're saying even though the folks with Fairness West Virginia saying they're not having this conversation right now, they are?
It's a conversation that they are having, whether or not they realize it or not, and one that we need to have out in public and say, hey, listen, let's stop talking about this or that, the other thing. Let me give you a good example of how this would work out. In New York, actually, one of the big convincing reasons for them to pass the bill up there was that there were some, what they called stringent religious freedom protections within the bill. That was ultimately what allowed for Republicans to, I guess, cave on the issue and vote for the bill. Well, the reality is that protects maybe, and I think those will probably go away through some court decisions perhaps, it may protect corporations and benevolent organizations. It does nothing for individual religious freedom. And here's why that's important. Just yesterday, I was talking to a videographer up in Morgantown. We're hosting a debate, or sponsoring a debate next week up in Morgantown with some of the gubernatorial candidates, and I want him to videotape it. And in the process of the conversation, he says, so I just need to ask this question. What are your political views? And I told him that we defend marriages between one man and one woman and some other things. And I said, well, if that's the case, I'm pretty strong in my political opinion. And I will not support your organization by by lending my business to your organization, even if you're going to pay me money. Now, that's fine, and I think it's funny, but it's his business. He can do with it as he wants. He can decline it. But the reality is, if that were reversed and put in New York, if a Christian videographer was approached by a gay couple that wanted to videotape their wedding, their commitment ceremony, whatever it's going to be called, and he declined their business, they would be in violation of the law that is currently situated in New York State. So there is no individual religious freedom protections under this bill. That goes heavily against the grain of most of the people in West Virginia and across this country who believe that marriage provides a very strong foundation for a thriving society.
So going back to Kevin McCoy.
You really like that issue,
goodness.
don't you?
McCoy has called on your organization, the Family Policy Council of West Virginia, to drop its support of their amendment, the amendment, and instead support the authentic Marriage Protection Amendment. That is their amendment. He said if pro-family organizations and citizens are united, the chances of passing the broader amendment will improve. Would you be willing to drop your amendment and embrace their amendment?
Well, we're looking together at trying to work together on a variety of these issues, if it's with Kevin McCoy or if it's with several other organizations and groups. You know, the Southern Baptists and I have been working together, the Church of the Nazarene, the Churches of God, several other denominations and independent churches. I've had discussions, of course, with the Catholic Conference as well, who are keen on this issue as well. You know, it's a broad coalition that's going to make this thing work out, but it comes down again to allowing the people of West Virginia to have this issue. If we can work together on that, we certainly want to be able to do that. A bare majority of lawmakers in New York or here in West Virginia should not decide this society-shaping issue. This is an issue that is clearly underfoot across the country, an attempt to redefine marriage. We need to have that discussion here in West Virginia.
Jeremy Dice with the Family Policy Council of West Virginia. If somebody would like to know more about your organization, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, I'd encourage them to go to our website, familypolicywv.com. You can go to our blog, which is linked off of there as well. And later today, I hope it should be up and running later today, we're going to have a voter registration website up and going at wvvoter.com. That's literally they're putting the final little tweaks and pressing the last buttons at wvvoter.com. We want to make sure that we have a good turnout in this election, and people need to be registered to do that.
wvvoter.com.
That's right.
Jeremy, thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
Jeremy Dice with the Family Policy Council of West Virginia. I'm Rick Johnson with Shauna Johnson, and you're listening to Talkline. Back in a moment.